Hi, everybody. I'd like you to take a look at another horrible case. At the western end of Algoa Bay, stretching along the southeastern coast of South Africa, 400 miles from Cape Town, is the city of Port Elizabeth. In addition to being a major seaport, it is also the sixth most populous city in South Africa. It is in this city that, in November 2004, 18-year-old Chris Panayiotou graduated from high school and joined the trading corporation of his father, who owned a fairly large network of stores and eateries in the city and its surroundings. Chris had a desire to be involved in his father's business from a young age and developed an interest in managing retail chains and developing the retail services industry. He possessed amazing energy and determination. His dreams extended far beyond being an executive and skillful employee under his father's supervision. He dreamed of owning his own fish restaurant somewhere near a five-star hotel along Marina Drive and a large supermarket right by downtown Kings Beach. That afternoon, he was helping his father at a small diner on Market Street. The establishment's one-story, old building lacked square footage and glamour, but it was nonetheless popular with the neighborhood's youth. Here, Chris Panayiotou met his high school friend, who invited him to a Friday night party organized by mutual friends at Barney's Tavern, located on the beach, and a constant success among young people. On Friday, sitting in a wicker bamboo chair and sipping beer from the establishment's specialty mug, Chris noticed a pretty young girl sitting alone at the bar, drinking lemonade from a tall glass. The young man left his seat and walked over to meet her. Her name was Jaydee Dinks, and she had just turned 18 years old as well. A spark immediately ran between them. The young people found many common interests very quickly. After that party, Chris and Jaydee began dating, not even realizing that their Friday night meeting at Barney's Tavern would be the prelude to a horrible love triangle story that would lead to a tragic death. Jaydee was a girl with a cheerful and sweet personality. Her endless thirst for giving joy and warmth to others inspired her to devote herself to teaching. In 2005, she enrolled in university. While Jaydee focused on her studies, Chris started his own business with tenacity and entrepreneurial spirit. His first business was a local grocery store, followed by a neighborhood restaurant and cocktail bar, which Chris named Infinite. Despite their busyness, the feelings that bonded Jaydee and Chris grew stronger. It was a period when their relationship was growing stronger, like the roots of a young tree penetrating deeper into the soil. Both Jaydee and Chris created their own little corner of happiness. Kindness and love seemed eternal, and days were filled with smiles and hope for an endlessly joyful future. However, over time, the lovers began to have problems in their relationship, specifically one female problem. At first, Chanel Cutis was an employee of the store she maintained with her employer, Chris Panayiotou, and their relationship was strictly professional. However, everything changed after a year. Among the office corridors and long store windows, a secret love between Chris and his employee Chanel Cutis blossomed imperceptibly. This woman became not just an employee of the store, but also Chris's lover. All of this was carefully concealed, but employees working next to this couple could not help but notice the delicate hints of their affection for each other, glances, enigmatic smiles, and gentle gestures which left behind an aura of mystery. The lovers met secretly at night in local cozy hotels, and when Jaydee was away, Chris even brought Chanel to his home. By this time, in the eyes of family and friends, Jaydee and Chris looked like an established young couple. They were very well suited for each other and seemed successful and promising. Jaydee had graduated from university and got a job at an elementary school on Nelson Mandela Bay, and Chris's business was doing well. Finally, they were officially engaged and began living together. Nevertheless, Chris's connection with Chanel continued. Chris's father, Chris Panayiotou, was terribly upset on the one hand and furious on the other with the unexpected news of his son's secret affair with a sales clerk. He could not understand how Chris, who had dated the intelligent, kind, and decent Jaydee for 8 years on the eve of the wedding, could behave so immorally. Costa found his son at Infinite, celebrating his engagement with friends. That's where the heated conversation took place. Costa promised to disinherit Chris if he continued to date Chanel. Chris vowed to his father that he would leave Chanel, but, in fact, continued his affair with Codis. All this time, Jaydee had no idea about her fiancé's affairs on the side. Therefore, Chris and Jaydee were safely married in 2012. Soon, Jaydee received an invitation to work at Rebecca College. Chris, spending serious money to support 2 women, gave his business its first blow. His finances dropped significantly. Expensive gifts to his mistress, spending on fancy hotel rooms, and treats all did not add to the profitability of the business. Over the next 3 years, Chris became increasingly estranged from his wife, continuing his affair on the side, thus destroying his business and family. Jaydee felt that there was loneliness in her life, and that Chris had put her on the back burner, with no time to pay attention to her. The young woman shared with her friends a heavy sense of disappointment in her relationship with her husband. All her efforts to restore the former harmony did not lead to anything. Realizing the futility of her actions, by September 2014, Jaydee realized that she was on the verge of a nervous breakdown. On September 21, she decided to address herself by writing a letter in which she shared her deep feelings. In the letter, Jaydee clearly expressed her desire to be loved and have a normal marriage. She emotionally expressed her feelings and experiences of wanting to be loved by her husband and her desire for close, warm relationships and support. She longed for a normal man who would take care of her and with whom she could build a healthy relationship. Jaydee expressed in her frank letter her frustration and dissatisfaction with her husband's behavior of hiding things from her. This caused her to feel a sense of distrust and uncertainty. She described her state as if her heart had been taken from her and had been torn and trampled. Jaydee also expressed a desire to spend more time around her husband. On the early spring morning of April 23, 2015, a Monday, a rented car with 3 stout guys inside stopped near the gate of Staring Glad Village, where the young Panayotu couple lived. Their attention was drawn to a fashionably dressed young woman who was impatiently waiting for someone standing by the roadside. 2 of the trio had already started to open the car doors to get out of the car when the driver, who was left behind the wheel, gave them a command to stay in their seats. They watched through the tinted glass of their car as a black BMW parked beside her. She settled into the back seat and the car sped past them, picking up speed. The driver annoyingly slapped his hands on the steering wheel. The next morning, Tuesday at 6:15, Jaydee Panayotu left the house as usual to go to work at the college. It was no more than a 40-minute drive to her place of work, and she was waiting for her friend and co-worker Cheryl in her BMW to go there. She glanced absent-mindedly at the curb, where she spotted yesterday's car with tinted windows. Cheryl was running late. Jaydee pulled her cell phone out of her purse with the intention of calling her friend. In her sideways vision, she saw 2 figures coming toward her from the roadside bushes. Cheryl was only 10 minutes late, but Jaydee wasn't at her usual spot. Cheryl had called her phone in vain, and calls to the door of the house were also fruitless. The college also confirmed Jaydee's absence from work. Anxiety rose in Cheryl's heart, and she called the police. By 10 o'clock in the morning, Jaydee Panayotu was announced missing to the media and on social media. On the same day, the search for the missing young woman began. In addition to the police and a special K9 unit, volunteers and members of the local community took part in the search. Night fell, but unfortunately, there were still no results. In the morning, the search resumed. A reward was announced for any information about Jaydee, then the amount increased. At 10 o'clock in the morning, a K9 officer with his dog named Angel discovered the body of Jaydee Panayotu in a bushy ravine near Kwano Bushley. She was fully clothed. The medical examiner found 2 gunshot wounds in her back and 1 shot to the head. Her bank cards and jewelry were gone, as if someone had tried to obfuscate the motives for the murder. It wasn't just an act of violence. It was a low, inhumane act. Who would take the life of such a kind and harmless person? Jaydee's family was in shock. Family and friends couldn't believe this could have happened. Jaydee's students and co-workers were also grieving. The heartache of the terrible tragedy spread like waves in the ocean, far and wide across the country. Social media buzzed with grief and bewilderment. Who could have committed such a despicable and senseless murder? On October 22, Jaydee's family held a memorial service at the Catholic Church, and a funeral was attended by an unimaginable number of Port Elizabeth residents. So tragic and ridiculous was the young woman's death that it struck the citizens of the city and echoed with pain and compassion in their hearts. Among the family and friends of the deceased were also Jaydee students and colleagues who came to pay their respects and mourn the young teacher. See you in the next video. Bye.